Hi, I'm Ted Jackson, ultra athlete, so to speak, chunky man who's done lots of things. So I've run 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. I've done the Ironman, I've run marathons at the North Pole, I've done the Marathon des Sables, and I've cycled the entire route of the Tour de France. So for the 7 marathons, we start off in Antarctica. We then go to South America, so Punta Arenas in Chile. Then we went to North America, or America, Miami. Then we flew across the Atlantic and went to Spain. So we were in Madrid. Then we flew a quick short flight from Madrid to Morocco. Did the marathon in Morocco, so Madrid and Morocco were very close together. Then got a flight to Dubai, so that was our Asia leg. And then from Dubai flew to Sydney for the 7th marathon. Just under 7 days. So in terms of facing challenges, I'd never really done anything sporty in my life up until, I don't know, the first thing that I really did was the New York Marathon that a friend had signed up to do, and I said, oh, how do you do that? Because my brother had had a heart attack and my father was having a triple bypass, and I thought perhaps maybe in my adult life now was the time to start doing some exercise and getting fit, because there might be something hereditary going on. So many different challenges, so many different ways of preparing for them. I would say that most of my challenges that I've taken on, I've been woefully underprepared for most of them. So in terms of, when someone goes to take on an Ironman or something like that, normally they're training 3, 4, 5 times a week, going out, doing long runs, long bike rides, swims. When I did Ironman, I never even had been for a swim the year before the event. I didn't even have any goggles. I bought some new goggles before the event and then regretted it when I got there because they leaked. So preparation's never been a strong point of mine. So actually, when I first took on challenges, it was to really try and get much more fit and healthy. And then it actually became me just taking on challenges without really preparing for them. So preparing for the North Pole, I've been to the North Pole about 3 times. The first time I went to the North Pole, I did a silly little thing where I went to the local butcher's and I went and spent some time in the walk-in freezer at the local butcher's just to see what sort of certain temperatures felt like. But again, no real preparation, just making sure that I had the right the right clothing, the right number of layers and things like that. But in terms of being physically prepared, every time I've been to the North Pole, I've definitely been underprepared physically, and it's always hurt. So in terms of doing some training for a multi-day event, so for instance, if you want to go out and do the Marathon des Sables or 7 marathons in 7 continents, 7 days, one thing that I really wanted to know was that I could do more. I pretty much figured that I could do a marathon. If you asked me to do a marathon today, I could turn up and do a marathon. It would hurt. But at any stage in my adult life, I'd like to think that you can turn up and cover the distance of 26 miles. And if you can't, then you probably should be having a look at your fitness or your in life. But so to train for these multi-day events, I kind of just wanted to make sure that I could do a marathon one day and then actually get up the next day and do a marathon again. Because that's really key to success in this. It's not getting the first one done, it's getting the second and the third one done. By the time you've done the third, you're nearly over hump day and you're thinking, actually, I've got this. But did you know you could do day 2 and day 3? So there are a number of multi-day events that run certainly throughout this country, maybe going on the Thames towpath. So I kept stuck to the flat ones, but where you turn up, you do maybe 30 miles in one day, you sleep in a school hall in a sleeping bag with the other 80 competitors, and then you get up the next day and you do it again, and then you get up the next day and you do it again. So maybe 3 marathons in a row, or about 95 miles in 3 days. That was the sort of extent of my training in terms of I wanted to know that I could do it. And once I kind of knew that mentally and physically I could get through that, it hurt like hell, but I kind of knew, okay, I can do that. That's when I knew that everything would be okay. So staying motivated on a lot of these challenges is not easy. There've been times, for instance, I can remember times like on day 3 in the desert in the Marathon des Sables, where I really wanted to. We in those days used to get given a flare, and if you set the flare off, then a helicopter would come come and rescue you. And that day, on day 3, it was so hot, and we were just going through these sand dunes, and people's flares were going off all over the place, and I was thinking, oh, if they're doing it, I could just set mine off. And then something came into my head. Literally, that motivation that day was the charity money. You know, I knew that I had, I don't know, at the time, maybe that was £6,000 or £7,000 that I'd raised for that event, and I just thought, if I give up on day 3, that's not going to be good. So that kept me going. Other times, motivation's been different. I had some very, very low moments, sort of, 14, 15 days in, on my own, 100 miles into a long ride, thoroughly underprepared, looking at big mountains that I had to climb, and actually weeping, but for some reason just kept on going. And quite often now, in a lot of my events, if I can remember and dig deep back to that moment, that helps me get through a tough time. So I'd always go back to a really tough time where I've been really hurting, and where actually all I did was just sort of, turn the pedal again and turn the pedal again. And actually, I don't remember when it got better, but it did, So actually, when you're doing an event now, if you just keep going, it will get better. What would I do differently? Be more prepared, train more, do more research. I'd say that I learn each time I do something. I'm never going to say to people, you can be over prepared, because I don't think you can. But I do think that actually, if you are slightly underprepared, you can overcome a lot of that by thinking yourself strong. Ooh, choosing a favourite challenge. Now that's a tough one. I've been on, just to the most incredible places on earth, and 3 things pop to mind. I think just favourite challenge. The Tour de France, when I did in 2006, was the biggest and largest thing I'd done up in my life, and that I find that a real sort of life-changing moment. It gave me the strength to know that I could almost do anything, because I could turn up and do 21 stages at the Tour de France as a quite chunky lad. The 7 marathons in 7 continents, 7 days, World Marathon Challenge, just the most amazing event, and it was the first time it had been done as a sort of commercial event, so being part of the first group that ever did that was just absolutely incredible. Being on Antarctica, getting the chance to go to Antarctica is just insane. It's just such a pristine continent, and obviously the North Pole is just the most incredible place on earth. It really is, and I've been lucky enough to go there 3 times, and it's, wow, what a place. It's impossible to describe. So I haven't really got a favourite. I just love doing it all. The biggest challenge I faced has probably been the biggest one that I failed on. So attempting to row the Atlantic and being rescued after 3 days on the Atlantic in a boat that we built ourselves and utterly failed at. It was a huge challenge, and I think actually my biggest challenge personally has been getting over the failure of not making it across the Atlantic. And I think I've learnt a lot of great lessons in that time, but it really taught me a lot about failure and about preparation and things like that. So yeah, being helicoptered off a cruddy little catamaran in the middle of the Atlantic was probably that for me. Would I like to have another go at the Atlantic? It's one that I think I've always said I won't say no, and if someone came up to me next month and said, listen, we need someone on our crew next December, and I've got a space for you, and it's a properly built boat, I'd be really tempted. Rowing the Atlantic on a properly built boat in December. No, I don't know what my next challenge is. I'm waiting for it to find me. How have these adventures come to me? I suppose the Tour de France came to me through a friend that we signed up to do the New York Marathon together. And that was, again, like kind of first running event. And then a year later or 2 years later, I got a text one day and that just said, I'm doing the Tour de France next year. Would you like to join me? And I just wrote back, yes, without even thinking what the hell the Tour de France was. So generally, if people ask me to do something stupid, I'd normally say yes, do the research, and then go, oh God, what have I got myself into? I suppose looking for challenges on the internet, there's a hell of a lot out there. There's just a world of adventure, but it's don't get caught, you know, when you're on the laptop and your wife comes in and you're like, oh, I don't want you seeing what I'm looking at, because she knows I'm looking for another adventure, not something else. What advice would I give to anyone wanting to try what I've done? I would say absolutely just do it. If you get given any opportunity to do anything like of any of the events I've done and someone says, you know, don't ever doubt that you're capable of doing it, because look at me. I mean, I'm not the most athletic person in the world. I never have been the most athletic person in the world, but I've done stuff that people wouldn't have dreamed was possible, I imagine, because I certainly didn't dream it was possible. So I suppose with nearly all the events that I've done, it's the mental preparation has been what's got me through. And I don't know whether it's been preparation or whether it's just been a mindset that I've attacked them with. You know, I haven't really sort of sat down and gone through a process of mental preparation, but what I have done is, what I normally do with a lot of events that I do is I put it out there and I tell the Insta sphere or the Facegram sphere or the Twitter sphere what I'm doing, and look at me, look what I'm doing. And therefore, if I don't actually achieve it in the end, I'm sort of setting myself up. So I'm putting pressure on myself on social media and fundraising wise. That I always feel that helps with keeping my motivation going. So I've generally fundraised for Overcoming MS, which is a MS charity, which has been extremely helpful for us as a family. My wife has MS, my mother has MS, and over the years, it's a very small charity, so I felt that it was something that I could be really involved with and make a real difference.